Hi, and welcome back to the Coffee Table, where we spill the tea, or should I say coffee, on all of our favorite books. I'm your host, Daniela, and today we'll be talking about Part 2, the tributes, chapters 10, 11, and 12 of The Hunger Games. So, in the previous episode, we talked about chapters 8, 9, and 10, and or not 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, and 9, and we just talked about them. But before we get into, part 2, let's do a small little recap of everything you should know, or everything that happened in chapter 7, 8, and 9. Chapter 7, 8, and 9. So, chapter 7, it's basically just a training scene, just a bunch of training, and then when Katniss shoots the apple of the pig's mouth and she just walks away. Chapter 8, it's basically just focusing on the A-Box girl that is from Katniss's past. And it's just how Katniss was stressed about getting a really low score for the private sessions, but in actuality she got an 11, which is the highest score out of everyone. And then chapter 9, it's basically just training for the interviews, and then Peeta confesses his love to Katniss, which is, big shock. Anyways, let's get on to part 2. Chapter 10. Okay, so we left off when Peeta confessed his love for Katniss, and the cameras were on Peeta and Katniss and all this stuff. So Katniss realized what Peeta had just said, and she was like, oh shoot, he loves me. So Katniss tries to, conceal her emotions, bow her head down, even though, she's blushing. She's tomato red blushing. So Katniss tries to conceal her emotions, but they're really hard to conceal. And so Caesar's asking, oh, did she know? And Peeta's like, no, not until now. Caesar's like, wouldn't you love to pull her back out here and get a response? Sadly, the rules are rules, and Katniss Everdeen's time has been spent. Well, best of luck to you, Peeta Mellark, and I speak for all of Tandem when I say our hearts are with you. So Caesar says that, and Katniss is like, oh my god, she was so embarrassed, and the cameras were on her the entire time that the anthem played. And once Peeta and Katniss got to their room, or to floor 12, Katniss just shoves Peeta against this really ugly urn, and and that causes shards of glass to get lodged in Peeta's hands, causing a bunch of blood to come gushing out. There's blood everywhere. And Katniss yells what was that for? You have no right saying those things. Why did you say all that? And then the other elevator opens, and the entire crew, Cinna, Portia, Evie, and Haymitch, they all enter, and they're like, what happened? What was going on? And Peeta told them that Katniss had shoved him against the wall. And so Haymitch, he goes, but he's so mad at Katniss. And then Katniss blamed Haymitch for influencing Peeta into saying that he loved her, but it was actually Peeta who did all the planning. Haymitch just helped, and Haymitch was yelling and blowing up at Katniss, and Peeta was just trying to help Katniss and him get the upper hand and get more sponsors. And so Haymitch was yelling at her. He pinned her against the wall, and she just shoved him off and walked away. But before she could say anything, or before she could leave, Cinna puts his arms around Katniss and is he told Katniss that Haymitch had a point. And then Peeta then said that she was just worried about her boyfriend, Gale. And then Katniss I don't have a boyfriend. She didn't share those feelings for Gale. So her anger just starts fading once she starts thinking and realizes what did I just do? The whole lovers thing, it was gonna give me an upper hand for more sponsors. And then she was torn between thinking that she got used and thinking she had the upper hand for the whole lovers thing. And she was so guilty, and Katniss apologizes. Yeah, and then they just go to dinner where they watch the replay in the sitting room, the replay of the interviews. And so so once the replays are done, they stay in silence for a while, and the next day is actually the Hunger Games, like the beginning of the Hunger Games. And so Katniss, so Effie and Haymitch, they say their final goodbyes to Katniss and Peeta, since they won't see them. So since they won't see them, since the next day they'll be heading straight to the Hunger Games building, like Hunger Games Center or whatever, and they'll be getting sponsors and trying to recruit sponsors or whatever. And so they said their final goodbyes. Haymitch gave them a couple words of words of encouragement and stuff, and they went to bed. Or everyone else but Katniss and Peeta. Because Katniss, she was staying up all night. She didn't know what she was gonna do. She was so stressed about the whole thing. So she went up into the roof and she saw Peeta there. And so they were talking about their worries and if they're ever gonna see their families again. And so they were just ranting to each other. And so once they were done and they were gonna go to sleep, he says the saddest thing, because he knows he's gonna lose and stuff. And so he tells Katniss to tell his mother that he loves her, which it's so sad, the fact that he knows he's gonna lose. So they each head to their rooms, and in the morning, Cinna takes Katniss to the shuttle that's gonna take them to the arena. And so they eat breakfast, and then they head inside the arena. There's this separate area where there's this metal plate that launches you into the arena or whatever. So they head to the arena, and then Cinna could tell Katniss was really stressed, so he gave her the little medallion that Mage gave her with the Mockingjay on it, and then he was holding her hand, and he could tell that she was stressed. And he asked if she wanted to talk, but she didn't. And so Cinna just reminded her of what Haymitch said, and Katniss, she stood on the metal plate, and before she could completely leave Cinna for the Hunger Games, he says one thing to her, and one thing only: "Good luck, girl on fire," which is so sad. But once Katniss is in the arena, she hears a voice: "Ladies and gentlemen, let the 74th Hunger Games begin." 60, 59, 58, 57. 60 seconds they had to stand on the iron plate for. 60 seconds until 24 tributes could run towards the cornucopia full of weapons, food, medicine, and shelter. Katniss kept playing Haymitch's words in her head. Just clear out, put as much distance as you can between yourself and the others, and find a source of water. Katniss then got distracted by a shiny object. It was a bow that she thought was meant for her. She started making up strategies of how she could get the bow, and started making scenarios in which she could get it, but at a cost, maybe even her life. Katniss sees Peeta, and then the timer goes off, and she missed her shot to get the bow. Katniss lunges towards the trees, and she picks up some plastic and some bread. She then spots an orange backpack about 20 feet away from her, but sees a boy from District 9 try and grab it. He then coughs up blood in her face, and he stabs in the back by a girl from District 2. Katniss doesn't want the same fate for herself, so she ran as fast as she can. She was almost hit in the head by a knife that the girl from District 2 had used to kill the boy, but she had used her backpack to block it. So now, she has a backpack, plastic, bread, a knife, and whatever could be in the backpack. Katniss continued running until the woods had completely concealed her from any other tribute. Katniss's next course of action was to find a source of water. She couldn't find any water, but she heard some rustling, and it was a simple rabbit. So Katniss had been running until late afternoon when she started hearing cannons, and each cannon shot indicated how many tributes had died that day. 13 tributes had died at the cornucopia trying to get weapons or food or whatever they could. 11 tributes left. Once it had gone dark, Katniss decided to look through her backpack, since, she couldn't not look through it forever. So what she found in the backpack was a sleeping bag, crackers, dried beef strips, iodine, wooden matches, a small coil of wire, glasses, and an empty half-gallon water bottle. She started to panic because she knew there was no way that she was going to survive without water, so she started thinking of where she could get some water. She was also starving, but didn't dare eat her oh my god, I can't read. She didn't dare eat her beef or crackers yet. Instead, Katniss started to walk again, walking a couple more miles until she found a nice place to settle up. So Katniss, she set up some snares to try and capture animals with the wire, and then she walked 5 more minutes until she found a nice oak tree that she would climb up into and put up camp there. But before she set up camp, she started she would scrape off pieces of pine trees, and then she would cut the bark off and make the softer bark inside. So, she set up some snares with her wire, just in case she was have something. She climbed into a tree about 5 minutes, and then, once night completely fell, she answered it, and it showed the tribute faces of who died. And, I forgot to mention this, but when it was showing the scores for the tribute, it had just a simple picture of the tribute, like just a headshot of them, and it had the same picture of them, and it had their district, that's the same picture that they used for the training session. So all that it was that, like, it had the picture, and then it had the district under the picture. And so she saw that 13 tributes had died, and Katniss was surprised and relieved Peeta was still alive. So she didn't really worry that much, but she was still kind of worried because she knew at the end she would have to eventually kill Peeta if they came down to her. So about 5 hours after she went to sleep, napping of branches woke up, and it was the process of lighting a fire. And soon after the fire started, an agonizing scream from a girl came. And it wasn't the brightest move because it was nighttime, and starting a fire, you know, you can see the light from it and the smoke. And so she was killed, or what was thought to be killed. And it was by the careers. And the careers are tributes from higher districts who have been training, like, since the day they were born for the Hunger Games. Because if you were in higher districts, being chosen for the Hunger Games was like this huge honor. It's like getting a medal. And if you won, it's even better. So the careers were fighting in a path, and they were like laughing after they thought they killed the girl. And Katniss heard like footsteps coming towards her. And like the careers had flashlights and torches and almost spotted Katniss, but her sleeping bag brought some camouflage with it since it was completely black. And so once his tributes didn't hear a blast from the cannons to indicate the girl's death, they thought that the girl wasn't dead, and they got into an argument of like, oh, the girl's dead, the cannons are just late, or oh, the girl isn't dead, the cannons didn't go off because she's not dead. And then a voice breaks the argument, and the voice belonged to Peeta. Alright, chapter 12, last chapter of this episode. So, Katniss was startled, like, she was really startled to hear Peeta's voice, that, like, she almost fell out of her sleeping bag, but she was tied to another branch with her belt. So, Katniss, like, she barely got a glimpse of Peeta's face, and it was, like, all bruised and bloody and swollen. And, like, the careers told him, like, to go check if the girl was dead, like the girl from the previous episode, or not episode, chapter was dead, and Katniss felt like, she felt really betrayed again. The fact that, like, he said that he loved her, and then, like, they were best friends one day, and the next day he just, like, he backstabs her. He goes against what Haymitch says. Like, he doesn't run towards the forest, he runs towards the cornucopia, where he meets the careers and joins them. Like, that's messed up. So she felt backstabbed. Like, the boy on the roof was playing this other game to try and betray her. And, like, the careers, once Peeta left and he was, like, out of site or whatever, the careers, they were talking behind his back about him. They were saying like that they should kill off PETA. Like they were asking each other like if they should kill off PETA or if they should save him to like, or spare him to see if they can find Katniss faster. And so once PETA came back, cannons went off and the careers knew that the girl was dead. So once the first lights of dawn came, or like peeked through the canopy of trees, all the careers they ran off, and PETA knows well, and like they ran off, and Katniss was wondering if they were sparing PETA because he had the information of how to get to her and he knew her best. And like Katniss knows that PETA knows well that Katniss got an 11 because of her skills with the bow and arrow, and that but he was saving that because, and I guess like she thought that he was saving that because he knew the information was the only thing keeping him alive. And then so in the morning, you know how birds usually sing? Well, the birds, they just shut off. They're not shut off, they stopped singing until one was like giving a warning call, and that's when this hovercraft appeared out of nowhere, and it abducted or took the dead girl, and then like it just disappeared. It just completely straight up disappeared. And so Katniss knew that she had to get out of there before the careers came back. And so Katniss wiggles her way out of her sleeping bag, and like she knows that once she gets out of the tree, cameras will be all over her and the audience will know that she heard the conversation between the careers and PETA and all that stuff. So Katniss checks her snares before she leaves, and she's rewarded with a rabbit that she skins guts and buries the guts under a tree. And then so she knows that you can't eat rabbits raw because then she'll get rabbit fever. So she remembers the coals that came from the girl who started the fire, and she went back to the coals and like started cooking the rabbit on top of it. And she knew that if people saw this, they would want to sponsor her because they know that she's not going to be captured easily and she's a good hunter. So once she cooks the rabbit, she eats about half the rabbit, and she heads out to find a source of water since she's gonna be since it's really hot and like dehydration, it happens really fast. So after time went on, Katniss was getting more and more desperate by the second, and was about to pass out So once nightfall came, Katniss strapped herself back in her tree. And once she out in the place, she sees the girl's face that PETA killed. She was from District 8, and yeah. And so in the morning, it brings a lot of pain to Katniss, like her dehydration. She's like so incredibly dehydrated, and even standing up is hard. Like it brings so many. It feels like 100 needles are like poking her at once. And so her only chance to find water was to keep looking and keep pushing, but it was getting progressively harder by the second. And she yells out water to try and signal hey Mitch or like any sponsors to try and give her water, but there was no water. No water came down from a little parachute. It was no use. And like Katniss was thinking that, oh yeah, maybe all the sponsors left because PETA decided to join the careers, or maybe Haymitch hates me. But then she took it as a sign like maybe there's water near me. So she kept walking until she collapsed into mud. And she was like, oh look, how pretty is this mud? I love mud. And then she realized it's mud. And then so she keeps crawling until she finds water. And she sticks her head in it and she starts chugging the water. And then she's like, okay, we need to start. She's like, okay, I need to start rationing this. So she puts it in her water bottle. She puts some iodine in it to purify it. And then she keeps going. She eats like the other half of her rabbit, drinking water sparingly. And then until she like sets up camp for the night. And then in the morning, a wall of fire appears and it's heading straight towards her. But we'll find out what happens in the next episode. Now it's time for everyone's favorite part. Recap, favorite parts, ratings, predictions, questions, and our outro. So as a recap, chapter 10 is just the whole Peeta loves Katniss thing, and it's just the whole Peeta loves Katniss, and before the Hunger Games actually starts, and Cinna and Katniss having this really cute moment together. Chapter 11, Hunger Games start, Katniss runs. That's basically the entire chapter 11. And then chapter 12 is just Katniss, she's trying to find water. To sum it all up. And she finds Peeta is working with the careers. Anyways, for favorite parts, I have to say when Cinna was like, here, let me find it. My favorite part was when Cinna, he was like comforting Katniss, and he's like, if I were able to bet, I would bet on you. Like, I would bet all my money on you. And Katniss was like, truly? And he's like, truly. Good luck, girl on fire. And that was just so sweet and adorable, and I love it. So as usual, predictions, you can put it down in the comments. And for a question, do you think you would be able to survive, like, as one of the careers? Or do you think you would be one of the careers? Anyways, that's all. You just listened to another episode of Coffe Table with your host, Daniela. Subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, and may the odds be ever in your favor. Bye!